My brother, the Commander-in-Chief of the Radio Microphone Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the DG, thank you for finding me worthy to deliver this lecture this day. If Radio Nigeria is to be a political party, that will be my real party. For one reason, uplifting the people and uniting the nation. This is the essence of what our change mantra stands for. Your Excellencies here too numerous mention. This is why I find it easier to say, my people, my people. As you can see, I've just been drafted to be a guest lecturer. And in my usual characteristics, I'm not used to a written text. So do not expect from me a formal lecture. I'm going to give a talk. Because in the first place, I'm not qualified to be a lecturer. How can I be a lecturer when professors are here? What qualification do I have? And if I want to sound like a lecturer, they will begin to mark my thesis. But thank God also that I'm here giving a talk in the name of lecture, and professors are sitting down listening to me. What a wonderful day. This must go down in my CV as man who lectured the professors. But on a serious note, if my views have been consulted, and if Ladan had discussed with me before this invitation for this lecture, I would have chosen a topic more suitable to my talent. I would have loved to discuss of free education as an instrument for national development. I would have liked to talk about philanthropy. But here he dragged me to speak on a very controversial topic, change. And I'm not Muhammad Buhari, the president, who is the commander-in-chief of the Change Armed and Armless Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So asking me now to speak on this change is like setting a trap for me. But let me say to you, ladies and gentlemen, I will speak and bear my heart. But in this lecture, and by the way, there will be no handout at the end of this lecture, so make sure you make your notes. I will bear my heart, and I will tell Nigerians how I feel about the entire entity called this nation, because of my genuine concern for this generation and subsequent generation of Nigerians yet unborn. In other words, this is the only golden opportunity for us to get it right. And if we don't get it right now as a nation, we can as well forget it. This is why this very topic is very crucial at this moment. But let me come back to this topic. Managing change in a democracy, the Nigerian situation. Rather than sounding like a lecturer, let me take a more practical approach by first of all try to understand what does Salisu Ladan and his people want me to talk about? Managing change in a democracy, the Nigerian example. And for those of us who understand, let me take a definition now. My lecture have started, by the way. Managing, for me, is simply running a thing, business. Be it government, be it organization, be it a family. Everyone is a manager in one form or the other. But here, from the Webster New Dictionary, defines managing as directing, if you like to use the word, with a certain level of skill towards ensuring the compliance in an organization. But that definition is not relevant for what I want to talk about. Because for me, Managers are those who maintain the status quo and who go by the rules and regulations of an organization. So bringing a manager to a change will not be the right terminology, but rather you can bring a leader to a change. But the pivot upon which this lecture will rotate is the word change. What is change? Let me also tell you, from that same dictionary, it gave me a very nice definition, which is doing something new in a radical manner. And that quickly hit my heart to say, that's the picture Nigerians have of President Buhari before they elected him. The Buhari of change, the Buhari of queuing online, the Buhari of zero tolerance to corruption. That's what brought him in. To some people, my question will be, does change means doing something differently in a democratic structure? Does change means changing from one form of government to another form of government? Does change connote replacement and displacement reaction in the course of election? Because in chemistry we said elements that are higher in the electrochemical series must always displace those lower in the electrochemical series. So given parties that are higher in the number of people will always displace those parties that have less number of people. Is that the change we're talking about? And my idea is that you could change a government without changing the living standard of the people. That is not change. You can change a minister and change a service chief without actually changing the system. That is not the change I think you want me to talk about. You are talking about change that really reflects positively on the life of the ordinary man. But let me say to you that change has come and change is here with us. But let me reserve it. I'll bring it again later in the course of this lecture. But let me again define the word democracy. Democracy is that form of government where the supremacy of the people will always reign. In other words, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But democracy came like a wild wind from America, traversing all over the world. Some places creating havoc, and some places creating development. A nation that understands the essence of democracy have developed with it. A nation that do not understand have become down in the course of democracy. That again is a serious matter for debate. How have we fared in democracy in Nigeria? What has democracy produced for us? Let me say to you, shockingly enough and surprisingly, democracy in Nigeria has produced for us only political leaders without state leaders. Democracy has produced for us politicians who think about the next election constantly and not state leaders who will think about the next generation. So the challenge we have today is that in the course of democracy in Nigeria, once you get elected into office, your next action plan is how to win the next election, and not necessarily how to put food on the table of the common man. This is the type of change we need to address. Because people say you could change. Thank God people are not changing their wives and not changing their husbands. Because change in a democracy is quite a different story. Let me say something here before I go on. Do you know if you take a bottle of Coke and pour out the Coke inside the bottle of Fanta, and you drink that bottle of Fanta, you're not drinking Fanta, you're drinking Coke. So changing the container does not amount to change, but changing the content. I also buttress this point in relation to democracy. So back again, we are looking for leaders in a democracy and not managers in a democracy. And thank God that President Muhammad Buhari, today, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, has the characteristics, the attribute, the personality that signifies change. And I want to tell all Nigerians that we are now in the right place. So democracy for me, and for those of us who agree with us, is that democracy in Nigeria has not been well practiced. Maybe this is the first time the masses of Nigeria desiring change could come out in a mass to vote a leader of their choice. Before, police, former IG, with due respect, INEC, army, determine who occupies a political position in Nigeria, and those who control the means of production, cash. That is not democracy. That is democracy. The experience we had in the last election, where you can see people literally with gun carrying boxes with uniform, is rather less than what democracy has asked us to do in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So that change in democratic structure must come. And I want to commend President Buhari for the changes that is going on. And I'm told that the committee has been set up to review the elections that just took place and the role of the military and police and INEC in that matter. That might be the way to start. So if there's action taken now, and this action taken as a deterrent, next time when you call an army man or police or INEC to do the wrong thing, he will tell you Buhari is by the side. Because the fear of Buhari is the beginning of political wisdom. So I'm going to be talking about democracy much later, but let me go to the issue of Nigeria. Let me define Nigeria. There's no definition of Nigeria in dictionary. And I don't know who can define Nigeria, but let me make an attempt. Nigeria is this sleeping giant of Africa with a population of more than 180 million people, theoretically, because we do not even know our population. We assume. With arable land, with energetic youths, diversified in blessings, sweet crude, tantalite, gold, silver, that had every blessings of God, but yet is considered as one of the underdeveloped nations of the world. A nation that got its independence 55 years ago, 1960. By the way, Nigeria is not 55 years old. Nigeria is 100 years old. Because people they use Nigeria's independence to tell me about Nigeria's age. Nigeria can't be 55. Because during 1914, the days of amalgamation, Nigeria was existing before amalgamation. But let's talk the time we came together. It's 100 years now. And 100 years later, Nigeria is still having a lecture on how to move Nigeria forward. We're still sitting here discussing what to do for a change to come so there will be future for our country. I think it calls for sober reflection. And that's why I will tell you the truth today. If you want to seize my bicycle, go ahead, it's outside. So Nigeria is 100 years of age, for crying out loud. Who got their independence on the platter of gold without struggling for it. And that's the beginning of the apparent laziness in the Nigerian nation. We want everything easy coming, cheap coming, easy money, easy life. Most nations that got their independence on a platter of gold are no do-well nation. Those who struggled and spilled blood for it are today better off for it. And the worst part, it was Lord Lugard, even his wife, who gave us this name, Niger area. It was the wife that gave us Niger area. And we had a very wonderful anthem. Do tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Many have argued, should you not have stayed with the British up to this time? Some have argued, why didn't they take power from the colonial masters without understanding direction? And since then, we have had governments upon government. Military has come in with the view to correct the past. Different presidents have come, different heads of states have come to this country, all working towards making Nigeria great. And my question this morning, would you then say that this head of states and presidents that came with the intention to fail? Definitely not. No military president that came with the intention to fail. No civilian president came with the intention to destroy this country. But there's a missing link. The missing link is leadership and vision contained in the medulla oblongata of that leader. Because there's nothing wrong with the head of state, but there can be something wrong with the state of the head. Leadership is everything. And that's why we've been crying for a change for the right leader. Most people, anytime you see an organization not doing well, hold the leader responsible. Like that. If FRCN is not doing well, hold him responsible. If Imo State is not doing well, hold me responsible. That's what is called leadership. A leader is that man who can inspire, encourage, motivate people towards achieving a particular result in a particular manner. That's the leader we've been waiting for, and that's what I want to talk about. Leadership in a change, rather than managing status quo, because leaders are crazy people. Leaders are mad people who knows where they are going to and hook themselves onto the end while asking followers to come. Unshakably. That's what is called passion. So leaders in the style of exchanging or giving dividend of democracy or whatever, most people don't understand them. And they have often criticized more than anyone else. Any manager, anyone that you applaud while in leadership is a manager. Leaders don't get applause while in the course of that job. They get applause years later when they leave. When America with President Buhari to see Obama, and we sat there. This reminds me, I have to say this. And President Buhari exchanged pleasantries with President Obama. And I saw the beauty of my nation. When the American president took his time, more than 15 minutes, eulogizing President Buhari as a man of impeccable character. Our nation rose from zero to the greatest height because leadership has emerged. And I sat there, I saw the encomiums poured on my president. And President Obama told him, I'm willing to work with you. Just tell me how you want us to go. I'm here. That wouldn't have happened many years ago. But I turned around and I said to myself, Mr. President, can I speak to President Obama? He said, go ahead. I said, Mr. President Obama, I'm happy to see you and your brother exchanging these wonderful pleasantries. But my question is, you see, I know you had challenges with Obamacare. There are certain decisions a president would take that doesn't go down well with the people. And sometimes it's for the good of the people. If President Buhari takes such decision in the course of trying to change Nigeria for better, and the people are raising dust and everything, when he turns around, can he see a President Obama brother behind him? So, leaders are radicals. And you should expect a radical change. And change is not easy. So let me come to issue, having defined Nigeria, situation is simply locating a thing in relation to its environment. So I think what Ladan wants me to do is to x-ray the challenges, if you like, that will face this change mantra under the leadership of President Muhammad Buhari. But let me come. One, there's a major issue that must be addressed and addressed now. The issue of unity of Federal Republic of Nigeria. And I'm happy Sardauna did mention about Mossab. And I wish he had gone a little further into it. But today, thank God Almighty, that the only force holding Nigeria today is God. Because all qualities or qualifications of nation that has broken, all of them are in Nigeria. And all the characteristics of a broken nation is in Nigeria. Look at what is happening. Insurgents in the Northeast. But yet we are together as a nation. Look at the crisis in the South-South. Yet we are together as a nation. Look at our last election when we thought there would be no Nigeria. Yet we came together as a nation. I think God is not done with us yet. You see, have bigger plans for us as a nation. Look at the Syria now, Iraq, Iran, Lebanon. These countries started with us, but they're in deep crisis now than you can think of. Only a few days ago, bombing took place in France. They have more problems than we have in Nigeria. So we must thank God and not take this grace of God for granted. So the unity of our country is very prime. That's why I love that old national anthem which says, though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. That anthem came out of concern. The person that produced that anthem knew that Nigeria will have that problem. When first of all, the first political parties we had in Nigeria was the one championed by Zik, NCNC. The one championed by Sardauna, MPC. And the one championed by Awolowo, AG. That was the beginning of the division of this country. And voting was along the same pattern. That's what we are trying to rebuild today as a nation. This issue of tribalism and sectionalism. As it stands today, few months ago, when President Jonathan was in power, it appears to the people as though it is the time for the South-South or the Christians. Today is President Buhari. You also have the challenge that in some local Nigerians, it will be the time for Muslims or the time for Northerners. No nation can build under this circumstance situation. We must unite. And that was why, during the presidential election, I kept my ticket for governor, and I troubleshooted as a presidential candidate. I ran with President Muhammad Buhari. It was a candidate like myself. We were colleagues at that time. But I did so because I do not believe that Nigerian national offices of power must be on the basis of rotation. Let he that has something upstairs, irrespective of where he comes from, Christian or Muslim, occupy the position for as long as there will be food in the gastrovascular cavity of the common man. I asked him this question. Does religion speak the language of poverty? Does it know, when hunger comes, does it know any tribe? In fact, sometimes when you want to eat in a restaurant, your brother who is the same religion with you and tribe, who doesn't cook well, you jump him in the night and go to a non-brother, so to say, and eat the proper food. Even when you want to sew your clothes, if the person who tells us well is not your brother, you go for him and leave that to your brother who tells us well. So where does this tribalism come from? And it's been transferred from generation to generation. Our leaders do not help matters. That's why I was talking to Sardauna and I said, Sardauna, you must come to Southeast as chairman of Arewa Consultative Forum. There's no interaction between ACF, Ohanese, and Afenifere group. These are blocks that need to interact. Even this morning, I said to Mr. President, Mr. President, there's need for the traditional rulers in the north to move down to the southeast and south and stay for 2 weeks. And those in the south and southeast should move down to the north and stay for 2 weeks. We need to unite this country. Uplifting the people, uniting the nation. The change has this problem to worry about. That's why when the issue of Mossop came in, they had their last rally 3 days ago in Imo State. And that was to be the main rally to create the catastrophic destruction. When the information came to me that Mossop was coming to Imo State, having heard that Mossop operated in rivers and they were killed, and Anambra, what happened? Things were bombed, and Delta. They were coming to Imo. Then I had a Security Council meeting with the help of the President and service chiefs. I said, no shooting. Give them proper escorts. So they were followed with military vehicles, and they went round. As they go round, they prayed at every junction, and they continued. And they ended up in Imo State without a dropping of blood. But because of the way they felt they were handled, in the night, my chief of staff told me that he got a call from one person that Mossop want to see me, leadership of Mossop. I said, that might be, well, a very good story. So I called Mr. President. I said, Mr. President, I need to receive these boys. He said, go ahead, wonderful. Do you know at about 11 o'clock, Mossop arrived at my house. It's not a very pleasant situation. But before then, I've asked 3 sets of security men to conduct search. Because I want my life too. And we had a meeting with them. They enumerated their grievances. What were their grievances? One, that some of them were killed at Northeast, and they ran back home. And since they came back home, they're not doing anything. Most of them are orphans, and their children are not going to school. Nobody cares about them. So they were talking that the world will hear them. And they've registered more than 7.2 million people. Second worry, that they were part of Niger Delta, but when they came for amnesty, they did not consider them while they submitted their arms. Number 3, that in Lagos they lock up their shops, and the traditional rulers said they should put them into lagoons. Number 4, that they have 160 corpses littered all over the mortuaries they want to bury. Number 5, and number 6, we went on and went on. But I said, is that the reason why you should declare yourself a nation? They said they want to declare themselves a nation, but all they want is that they want people to know that the same Biafra they killed yesterday. It's an ill wind that blows no one any good. Sometimes our leaders have a role to play. Because every unemployed youth in this country is a time bomb. Do you imagine now that anywhere you see 3 boys in a taxi, you are scared. Unconsciously, you are scared. And if you see 10 youths now walking towards you, you start running without somebody asking you to run. That's the situation we find ourselves in this country. So the change will address all these challenges. So the issue of unity of our country is very key. And is something that this change would have to address, and quickly too. If you go to Jos, there's what is called Angwa Hausawa. I don't know if you know about that, Sadona. You go to Kano, you have Sabonge, where Igbos park themselves. You go to Were, you say Hausa, Amausa. In a nation where we profess unity, but yet a Lebanese man comes here, he's more accepted in the north than his brother from the southwest. An Indian man goes to Lagos, he's more accepted than an Hausa man in Lagos. I think we should, as a matter of urgency, address the issue of unity of this country. The change must also address the issue of the structure of governance in Nigeria. And like Mohammed, my brother, here you come. The way Nigeria is structured today, and this is what the change must take, is a very big federal government with a very small stomach called state government, with a very broom leg called local government. Can you imagine a man or a woman with a broom leg, with small bulging tummy, with a big head? You will marry her. That's why nobody can marry Nigeria's economy. That's what I call the principle of kwashiorkorism in Nigerian economy. There's too much over-centralization of power in Nigeria. So whenever this big head is working, and there's breeze or wind of dropping oil price, then you see it moving like a galloping. This is why I introduced in Imo State reversal theory of power, which I call Ohashiarism. Ohashiarism is an Igbo word. Oha, the crowd or the people cooking, preparing food for one man. That man can never finish it. But where one man prepares food for the entire rest of the people will be hungry every day. That's what is called Ohashiarism, as against Ofushiarism. Because, take for instance, today we have ministries. Thank God that President Buhari has reduced the ministries. Too much of bloated. We have Minister of Work. Minister of Work will go to Owerri and award contracts of roads. And when the directors are moving here, they are moving with trans allowance. They are moving with the peripheral of office, flight ticket, sleeping allowance. And before they get there, they have spent another 20 million to go and inspect a road, which the contractor has not put about 50 million. The money that will be used to put another potable water. There's need to quickly decentralize power in Nigeria, so that there will be more powers at the grassroots. In Imo State today, I have what is called, I'm sure some of you had heard it, the controversial fourth tier of government, which I call CGC, Community Government Council. Now, what I did is, instead of, we have federal government in Imo State, we have state government in Imo State, we have local government in Imo State, and we have community government. After family, the next level of government is community. And this is where the traditional rulers play a very key role. Let me tell you, lie. Anytime any person in Abuja, federal government, before steals, we're here, they stolen $1 billion, $2 billion. Do you know, in my village, people think it's foreign money they have taken. Nobody has a feeling for that money because it's federal government money. In the state, when they hear a governor have stolen, they say, he took state government money. Local government, say local government money. But you don't dare touch 1 naira of a community. So we, Africa, I'm talking about culture. Our culture must be made to play in this change mantra. Because every society of mankind is created by God with their natural resources, human resources, and cultural resources. For no nation can grow above their human, material, and natural, cultural resources. For those has a relationship with God. Unquote, Rochas, Okorocha. So we must bring culture to bear in getting this things right. Because what you do in the north, you see as the Southerner is here, or even the issue of Nupe, what you don't do to a northerner is to touch his religion or touch his culture. And if they are allowed to develop with their culture, they will do better than this Englishman handover arrangement. So I propose that we should introduce fourth tier of government to allow communities come together. After all, communities are a group of people who share common interests, common pain, and who relate with one another. They know themselves. In Imo, kidnapping stopped today because of community government. In Imo today, we are planting 1 hectare of palm plantation in every community because of community government. In Imo today, we handle agricultural development because of community government. So there's need to decentralize power authority. This change will address the issue of education. Education is very key. It's very unfortunate that today in the Northeast, out of school children population is almost 100%. And the education that we have today is a theoretical education which does not reflect any practical realities. And I wish the change can address this. So many of our children now cannot go to university because they can't get JAMB. We have more thousands of children without education. What happened? JAMB will not allow them. And what happened? JAMB say you must pass English and pass mathematics. Who put that law? Who is making life so difficult for our children? That you must have English. What's the relevance of English and mathematics for you to do anything in Nigeria? For me, it doesn't make sense. Our children suffer a lot. That for you to read medicine, you have to leave your mother's language, study English before you study the mathematics. So you are doing double job than the child who is in England. Imagine where they say mathematics. They said in mathematics I didn't do well. I was used to be good in mathematics. During my JAMB, I was disappointed before I went back. But my problem was, one night I was reading, my father saw me, I put my legs in a bucket, took coffee to stay awake to read mathematics. And what was the problem? I was trying to understand English. So my father said to me, my son, can you explain this thing in Igbo so I can give you the answer? So our children, Nigeria is disadvantaged. How can you do a race with a man who is already on the mountaintop? You understand? And in the valley. That's with us in America and United Kingdom, developed country. They say, on your marks, go. How can you be running a man who is already on the mountaintop? Of course, you know you fail. So Nigeria must devise a new means completely of solving our problems, rather than this following every day. After they finish with radio, we'll copy that radio. They finish with a transmitter of 100 years, we'll go to that one. When they finish with analog, 100 years later, we'll join analog. We have to leapfrog now and join them where they are, whether we are qualified or not qualified. So our education must be tailored now to suit our economy. Because today we have doctors who are bankers, engineers who are who are not mechanics. So we have challenges in this country. These are some of the changes Nigeria should expect. But when Buhari embarks on these changes, you hear Nigerians again shouting. Thank God the man is not a man who can move. I hope you have to hear him first before you know where he's going. He will keep quiet and listen to you. When you finish, if you say, go back. But he must do that. So he's a focused leader. We need a leader like that now. Even his presence alone will tell you to behave well. When the man came here and went through the traffic light one day without passing it, all the governors started obeying traffic light. That's leadership. He's not the leader you will go and say, have you ever had someone went to Buhari to give him money? Go now. So things have begun to work well. Change have started. But I'm talking about those changes that we need to address a bit to help. But the most important one, if I talk about corruption, is agriculture. Our brothers from the north, you have a role to play. The north can feed the whole of this nation. In 1960s, agriculture was the mainstay of our economy. It gave us over 70% of employment and over 75% of foreign reserve. Today, oil came and deceived all Nigerians. Today, who are we? Oil-dependent nation. Imo State depend on My local government depends on Imo State. Imo State depends on federal government. Federal government depends on oil. Depend. And yet we say we are independent. Nigeria is only a political independent nation by expression, but economically we are still dependent. Our youth is only in Nigeria you see young boys. It's only in Nigeria you see young boys roaming around the streets chewing sugarcane. In China, you see their colleagues running without clothes, going to factory, contributing to the economic development of their state. And when those boys produce toothpick, we import it here. I'm sure change will stop importation. 100%. We will not die. When one door closes, another door will open. So Nigeria, be prepared for change. Not just expectations of you must have this without also referring to the price you have to pay. Everybody must make sacrifice in Nigeria for this nation to grow. Thank God, Audogbe is a minister. And he's a man who has been preaching about this agriculture for so long. I hope he will bring it to bear, and I know he will do it. Time will not permit me to talk about the controversial issues of corruption, which I call primitive accumulation of wealth, and what to do. Time will not permit me to talk about prevention rather than cure in our security pursuit. Now we're addressing the issue of this Mossad in the southeast before it gets out of hand. That's what is called prevention. In anything in life, prevention is cheaper than fighting. Time will not also permit me to go out at the other critical areas. But let me say this while I exit for this time. I have some few minutes to say, with all this said, my greatest joy is that the right leader has emerged. All we need to do as a nation is to support him in prayers and cooperate with him. We must see this government as our own, irrespective of political party affiliation. It's not a government of APC for APC. It's a government of Federal Republic of Nigeria for Nigeria. And this is a new spirit with which I speak to you. But I believe that in the next couple years to come, and I had wished that President Buhari will continue in this way, and I pray this right direction has started. Telling Nigerians the truth, no matter how bitter it is. Because I like he spoke in India, and some people were wagging tongues because he said the truth. Before we'll plaster, deceive Nigerians. Buhari will not deceive you. He will tell you as it is. That's the change that represents. I believe that very soon, not distant from now, this our green flag, green, white, green, will fly over America. A couple years to come. Fly over India, over Singapore, over Germany, commanding the commerce of those areas. I know that one day, not too far again from now, hope our youth again will no longer claim other nationalities. They will hit their chests and say they are Nigerians. It's my prayer that one day we shall all sit in the table of brotherhood and sing that old national anthem, though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Though I believe that one day, that though we came in, with due respect to our founding fathers, we came into this restaurant of Nigeria, where we saw a big board, eat everything, for our forefathers have paid for it. Unfortunately, they didn't pay all for us. But we're now eating, drinking the oil. Shortly again, as we're exiting from that door, we shall see a new billboard, which is the pay for the future generation. We have to make sacrifice. Sacrifice now and now too. But I believe in all this, Nigeria again will be a great nation. And we'll have a cause to sing, "Arise, O compatriots." God bless you.
I think we can do better. A better round of applause for the man, always a Rochas Okorocha. We can do better than